Good evening, and thank you for joining us for our meeting about the combined maintenance facility tonight. For anyone who is interested or knows someone who is interested in listening to this meeting in Spanish, please feel free to click the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen and select Spanish. I will now take a moment to offer a brief welcome along with these instructions in Spanish. Buenas tardes y feliz Día de las Madres a todos los que nos acompañan de México, de Guatemala, El Salvador. Gracias por estar con nosotros en el equipo de trabajo de las instalaciones del uso combinado. Si usted está participando en español, es posible que actualmente ya esté escuchando la interpretación en vivo. Pero si no es así y desea escuchar esta reunión en español, solo hay que buscar el botón Interpretación en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Oprime el botón y seleccione la opción en español. Más adelante en el programa, tendremos la oportunidad de aportar comentarios en vivo. Si desea participar en español, los intérpretes estarán para apoyarle. Quedamos a la orden y con su permiso continuaremos con la reunión en inglés con interpretación al español. Thank you. Let's transition to our slideshow for tonight. So again, welcome. As I mentioned, tonight we will be introducing you to our combined maintenance facility that is needed for Project Connect. We want this to be an interactive discussion. So if you are joining us on a Zoom webinar or social media, please feel free to type the questions in either the Q&A box on Zoom or in the comments section on our social media feeds. We have a team of folks who are working very hard behind the scenes to send written answers to you or to discuss them live. Later in the program, we will allow folks to raise their hands and open mics so that we can hear your questions in a live format. It's very reminiscent of what we used to do for call-in radio shows. This is a community meeting. Our goal is for our project team to understand what is important to you and to our community. We want to provide insight on community interest areas and share any potential concerns. So please allow me to emphasize the following. Our outreach and engagement with the community has been intentionally inclusive. We want to hear from all of our voices in our community. If you spot a person, maybe a friend or a neighbor who you encourage to participate for the first time tonight, please encourage their new voices to be heard in this space. This is a safe space where every idea deserves to be considered and every question deserves to be answered. That said, we will try to get to all of your questions answered tonight. And if we can't, know that we will use the issues you have raised to inform topics for our future meetings. As far as the agenda is concerned, tonight we will begin with a brief overview of Project Connect, and then we will walk through what a combined maintenance facility, or CMF, is, why we need one, and the evaluation process to determine the location. We will then have time for a Q&A session, and we will close by talking about next steps in upcoming meetings. Our aim is to have you back to your evening plans by 7 p.m. Slide, please. So I'd like to introduce a couple of people who have joined us for our webinar tonight. The first person I'd like to introduce is Marcus Guerrero. If you could just turn on your camera and say hello. He's our Director of Facilities and Expansion. Go ahead, Marcus.
All right, Jocelyn, thank you. Yes, Marcus Guerrero, Director of Facilities Expansion for Austin Transit Partnership.
Thanks, Marcus. And secondly, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Giannis Banks, who's on the public involvement team, who, fun fact, has a radio show of his own, and he's going to guide us through the live Q&A portion of the event. There he is. Thank you both for being here tonight. Slide, please. So let's dive right in. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, you may be asking yourselves, what is Project Connect? Slide, please. It's no secret that Austin is the place to be. In fact, the population in the greater Austin area is expected to double from 2 million, the number that we have captured here in 2019, to 4 million in 2040. And what does that do to our roads? The bottom line is, if you think traffic is bad now, in 2019, slide 8's good, thanks. In 2019, Council approved the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan, which aims to keep the number of cars constant while growing our population by an additional 2 million people. Our study from 2019 showed that at the time, pre-pandemic, only 24% of people were walking, biking, carpooling, teleworking, or taking public transportation to work. This study showed that 74% of people were driving to work alone. Through this plan, approved by Austin City Council, the goal is to grow with the city. As our population grows, we should have enough transportation options in place so that by 2039, we have 50% of people choosing a different mode of transportation. And yes, being realistic in this plan, we should still plan about population to drive for work. But the transportation modes put into place would support this would be sufficient to alleviate traffic and keep our city moving. I just received word that we have Councilmember Vanessa Fuentes who has joined us. And Councilmember Fuentes, I'd like to welcome you. And if you would like to turn on your camera and say a few words, we'd welcome that. Councilmember Kitchen is also here. And we'd like you to invite you to unmute and do the same. If not, thank you both for being here.
I'm here. This is
Hello.
Hi. This is Ann Kitchen. And Vanessa may Councilmember Fuentes may be having difficulties unmuting, so you might try her again.
We'll look into that. Okay, great.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say welcome to everyone. It's as you said earlier. We need to hear everybody's voices, and it's really important to participate. And so I want to thank everyone for signing on tonight and for sharing your thoughts, and want to invite you to continue to raise your questions, your ideas, your comments, your concerns. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here, Council Member. And Councilmember Fuentes, did you want to say a few words? We're not seeing her anymore. A few of us were experiencing technical difficulties tonight. If someone would flag me if she comes back in, we'd like to give her the opportunity again in case there was a technical glitch. All right, so slide 9, please. Project Connect is a plan that was approved by voters in November of 2020, which expands transit throughout the Austin area with increased services across the city, including a new light rail system, a downtown light rail tunnel that makes everyone's trip faster, an expanded bus system with more Metro Rapid, Metro Express, and pickup zones. And we're also transitioning to a zero emissions, which means an all-electric fleet in our buses as well as our trains. Slide, please. So what do we mean when we talk about expanding transit? Do we expect that 100% of us will ride our buses and trains 100% of the time? No, but every time we take a car, especially a single rider car, off of the road, everyone benefits. So if we take a look at the slide that's on your screen now, at the sample intersection, the orange and yellow sections in the movement on the left side of the screen, here you can see a lot more cars on the roadway. There are limited buses and there's no dedicated transit lane. Here, we're able to move 126 people through the roadway during each light cycle, with only 80 of them in transit. On the right-hand side, on the blue-green side, we see fewer cars, a couple more buses, and a lane that is dedicated to transit. In that same light cycle, we can move 235 people through this light cycle with 204 of them in transit. That is more than 100 people getting through the intersection in the same light cycle. Slide, please. Project Connect reflects the community's values. The first being opportunity and equity. So Project Connect will create thousands of good local jobs and provide more access to healthcare, education, employment, essential services, entertainment, and will also create and maintain more affordable places to live. Environment and sustainability is a second value, and there is a shared passion for in our community for the environment. That's why our commitment to environment and sustainable practices are core to Project Connect. We are already working towards our zero emission fleet and will continue to lean into the challenge to conserve and protect natural resources in the decisions that we make. And finally, our third community value comes to be innovation and technology. Technology and innovation inspire much of who we are as a region, and Project Connect will embrace that spirit, making transportation smarter, more efficient, more enjoyable, and easier to use. Slide, please. So here we have an artist rendering of what Austin right-of-way could look like. So from left to right, we have room for pedestrians and bicycles, a row of trees and benches known as a tree and furniture zone. And then we have cars and the dedicated rail transitway for the new light rail, which again, on the blue line, will run east and west from the airport to downtown, and north and south from downtown to the North Lamar Transit Center at North Lamar and 183. The cars, bikes, trees, and furniture zones and pedestrian zones are mirrored then on the right. I've just received note that we have Councilmember Fuentes who's joined us again. It seems like you're having technical difficulties. Would you like to join us to say a few words, Councilmember? Well, know that we truly appreciate not only your dedication of being here tonight, but also your tenacity and your trying to get in here. Thank you. Yes, as we're saying, thank you for being here tonight. Next slide, please. So you may be asking yourself where we are in this process. So far we've completed 15% of the design, and we plan to release 30% of the design with a draft of our environmental impact statement this summer. And then by winter of 22 and 23, we hope to have a record of decision issued by the Federal Transit Administration so that we can continue the design and eventual build. Slide, please. So at this point, I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Marcus Guerrero, who will walk us through the definition and the need for a combined maintenance facility in the Austin region. Marcus, take it away.
All right, thank you, Jocelyn. Yeah, so kind of piggybacking on what Jocelyn described as the full program of building over 20 miles of new light rail system, what comes along with that is a whole new fleet of trains, which will be electric vehicles, clean vehicles, state-of-the-art vehicles, and those vehicles need to be stored, maintained, and housed at a facility, which brings us to the combined maintenance facility. So this will be the main facility where the trains are maintained and the operations are headquartered out of this facility for the light rail system. A couple different types of functions take place on this site. Which is why we're calling it the combined maintenance facility. There's a maintenance of the trains themselves. The crews that maintain the corridor are also headquartered here. And then we also have some ancillary maintenance of some of the bus stop and bus shelter amenities. So this list kind of gives you a brief overview of the different types of functions that will occur on this site between maintenance, cleaning, repairs, inspections. The train crews will check in and out of this facility, plus their administrative and supervisors. The maintenance away crews, those are the crews I mentioned that take care and maintain the track work itself, the corridor. I will also have a new train control center here on this site. And then the public facility storage and staging facility for the bus items I mentioned, for the bus shelters and bus amenities. Next. So the next couple slides just lead you through similar facilities like this around the country or internationally. This is an example of a facility up in Washington, Sound Transit. The image on the left is a vehicle maintenance facility, which is very similar to what we're envisioning the CMF would be for Project Connect in Austin. On the image on the left, the building in the foreground is their maintenance away facility. Those are the crews that take care of the track work and the corridor. And the building in the background on the left represents the train shop and the train maintenance building. You can also see the storage tracks on the left side of that building. Then the image on the right is that same building from an interior shot showing the trains actually pulling inside of the building, similar to how when you take your car to your mechanic to get repaired, they might take it into the service bays. Well, these buildings are set up to actually bring the entire train into the building to perform repairs or inspections. Next. So there's different types of repair functions that will occur on this site. You can see the image on the left from LA Metro. The train will actually come into the facility. We can actually lift the entire train up on hoist and lifts so that different parts can be disassembled on the underside of the train or inspected. A variation of that is on the bottom left-hand corner. You can see where the train actually pulls over an inspection pit, which allows mechanics to get down below the train to inspect things or replace parts. The upper right side, we envision a body shop and a paint shop here on site. Paint booth would be a self-contained unit within the building with filters to capture any paint fumes. You see the bottom center photograph. Just different types of repairs on the vehicle could take place by different mechanics.
Yeah, and so Marcus, with that paint booth, is that something that's done now at Cap Metro, at least when it comes to the buses and the trains we have?
Yes, on our bus side, we do have a paint booth associated with one of our bus depots. And on the train side, yes, on the train side, I believe we actually ship that off site currently.
Okay, but yeah, but us painting the vehicles is kind of a normal thing the bus companies are doing.
That is correct. The maintenance away equipment on the right-hand side, bottom right-hand corner, that's the example of the maintenance away crews actually out there on the corridor taking care of overhead catenary wires or the track work. Next. Other types of functions that would occur on the site is cleaning the interior and exterior of the train. So we envision an automated train washer, which is pretty typical for these types of facilities, with scrubbers and jets to wash down the outside of the vehicle. And then staff and crews to help take care of the interior cleaning on a daily basis as well. Let's
go back to the train washer. I know for the bus wash is always something that people want to tour or ride in. I don't know why, but the bus wash is very exciting, it seems, for the community. Would that be something similar people could do here, get a tour of the train washing area?
Yeah, I'm sure that's something we can work out with the community or tour groups. On the right-hand side, this is a neat component of the facility will include our train control center. This is an example from Boston's transit system. This is where the staff and dispatchers actually monitor, supervise, and control all the train movements out on the system. It's integrated with cameras, so we can see trains coming and going, and the IT software and equipment to be able to track the movement of all trains.
Okay, and that's similar to the center we have now over at North Ops, correct? Is a larger version of that.
That's correct. This Boston example is a little bit obviously larger than what we currently have. So we would be doing something similar to this for our new light rail system on this site.
That's exciting. Yeah, I can't wait to see something like that, because that just looks like you're kind of in the deck of a ship or something. You can control so many different things. Yeah, mission control.
Yeah, mission control, that's a good way to put it. Next. So at the core of Project Connect is also the sustainability values and principles. So when we go to design this and plan this facility out, we'll be evaluating different types of sustainability features and elements and how we could incorporate those and the benefits of incorporating different pieces. So we're looking at canopies with potential solar panels on them, which could generate on-site power or feed back into the grid. We'll be looking at how the landscaping plays into sustainability in terms of native plants, drought-resistant plants, which reduce water consumption. Also, how we could potentially capture and reuse rainwater on site for landscaping areas. We'll also evaluate if it's appropriate to include a green roof, like you see here on the bottom right-hand corner. This is an example from Transit Toronto, where they actually put almost like a turf type element on top of the roof, which has certain benefits. So we'll be evaluating different things like this to see the feasibility of including it in the CMF project.
Right. So what would a green roof do? What would be the purpose of having that?
Yeah, so green roof does a couple different things. It reduces some of the heat gain on the building, because instead of like a metal roof or just your standard roof out there baking on with the sun baking on it where it heats up the building, the concept is the green roof actually helps absorb some of that heat and doesn't allow it to get inside the building. So it lowers your internal energy costs. You have less air conditioning costs throughout the year. There's some benefits and trade-offs though. The building has to be, the steel structure has to be heavier to accommodate that heavier load up on top of the roof. So there's some trade-offs which we'll evaluate. Next. And then obviously we want this building to look nice. We're going to look at different architectural features, aesthetic elements, so that this building is designed well, it fits into the community, and it's not an eyesore. We want a well-designed building. The three images on the right are actual rail maintenance facilities like what we're envisioning around the country. And then we also look at how we can even incorporate some public art. So the image on the left is a Baltimore example of art wall that they allowed the community to come paint on through some public artists. So we want to work with the community and talk with citizens on how we can incorporate elements like this into our project and really make it fit into the community that is sitting in. And then I'm going to hand this slide back over to Jocelyn, and she can kind of explain some of the community opportunities with the project.
Yeah, so here, this is where we want to talk about, not only are we excited about the possibility of public art opportunities that we can incorporate, but we're also excited about what this means for our community. So a few weeks ago, Cap Metro unveiled the Art on the Bus, completed by elementary school students in the Austin and in the surrounding districts. It was an exciting moment to see elementary age school children excited about their art being featured on our electric buses. And then they became, as a result, because they were involved, they became excited about transit. And so as we're rolling out this project internally, we're consistently asking ourselves, how do we keep the excitement and this momentum going? Are there possibilities for us to mentor middle school students starting now? Can we create new lines of study in our career and technical education programs? Can we develop new fields in the workforce development by partnering with school districts, community colleges, and trade schools? We hope so, and we hope that you can help us think of those future partnerships. We will need to tap our local community for every skill out there, as Marcus was just saying, from construction to the ribbon cutting phase. And then in the future of operations, from operating our trains and buses to servicing like fiber optics, to working in that really slick looking mission control, rail operations control room, to food services for people who are going to be there. You name it, we need it. So we're hoping to get some feedback as to potential partnerships you see in the community where this ends up being. Go ahead, Marcus.
All right. Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay, so this next section talks about where to locate a facility like this and the different criteria that's used in locating the facility. So these different bullet points here on the slide show the different considerations that are evaluated and looking at different properties along the orange line and blue line. I'll touch base on these here. So in the top left corner, I'll start with compatible use. So because this is kind of an industrial type facility, we want to make sure it fits into adjacent properties. You know, we want to be appropriate to locate this right across the street from a school or plop it down in the middle of a large residential area. Those are things we're really trying to avoid when locating these properties or this parcel, this project. I mean, the other thing that's needed at the top right-hand corner is because we'll be purchasing a whole new fleet of about 75 to 85 electric trains. That means we need about 60 to 70 acres for the track work and train movements and be able to park those trains on a daily basis, plus all the buildings associated with that. So we're looking at parcels of properties about 60 to 70 acres. We also want to minimize, where feasible, minimize impacts to properties and businesses. We're also looking at topography. You know, because it's a train yard, the site needs to be mostly flat. And since Austin is on the edge of hill country, parts of Austin have quite a bit of terrain or topography or elevation change. Those sites are pretty problematic. You know, one thing we don't want to do is we don't think it fits the character of Austin to buy a hilly site and then just come in with a bulldozer and flatten the thing to make it flat for us. That's not really what we're looking for. So we're looking for sites that are already mostly flat. Proximity to the orange and blue line corridor, that's key also. The site can't be miles off of the rail lines because it makes it very problematic. Environmental factors as well. We're trying to avoid, when possible, drainage features, wetlands, and springs on certain properties. And we're trying to avoid that, like, again, when it's possible, we're trying to avoid those items. And also it'd be great if there was a parcel that allowed future road expansion. And then some of the key thing here on the bottom left-hand corner is the property needs to fit within the initial investment. And so some of you all are familiar with Project Connect. Project Connect, approved by the voters, is set up as almost like a two-phase approach. The initial phase, or the initial investment, is to be built out in the next near-term future, while the future investment, there's no date on that yet. That would require additional input from the community. So this facility would have to be built with the first phase, which is the initial investment, so that it could serve the orange line and blue line on day one. That's a key component as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're saying it basically needs to be along those two routes, those two tracks where we're going to have the orange. We can't look out past where it's not going to be currently running it. We have to look for where it's going to be running at the good.
That's correct, Jonas. And then as we go through the next slides, I'll kind of give examples of how this kind of these evaluation factors kind of lay out here. So next slide. So when we took that criteria on that previous slide, and then we look at where are different properties around Austin that fit that criteria along the orange line and blue line. So we've done, Austin Transit Partners and Cap Metro have done a couple different studies. Starting back in 2019, we did a couple more studies in 2020, and then even up into 2021 of last year, of seeing where suitable parcels and properties would fit all those items that are needed for this property, for this project. And so I'll give you an example here. If you go to the next slide, here's an example of sites that are not feasible or reasonable because they may be beyond that initial investment I mentioned. So you can see here at the top of the slide and the bottom of the slide, the orange line that's not funded under the first phase or the initial investment, there's no timeline on that at the moment. It will not be built under the current investment plan. So those sites naturally fall off the list. This next site is an example of sites that are not compatible with adjacent uses. Like I mentioned, we want to make sure that this fits well within the neighborhood context, or it's not highly urbanized or already built up by existing properties that are already built out. So sites that are undeveloped are preferred on the list. And again, this is like a representational map, so showing just generally sites that were looked at.
So for that slide, it looks like along Riverside is where Riverside and Pleasant Valley is where we're looking, but it's not going to work.
Right. So again, the starting point is let's find a site along one of the corridors. What is along Riverside is the starting point. When you actually get into evaluating those sites, there's not a whole lot of sites that are 60 to 70 acres that don't have impact on businesses and residential in that zone. So they kind of fall off the list.
Right, which is important because we want to displace as few people as possible.
That's the goal. Next. Then here's some examples of other sites that are maybe remaining. They look good at first, but when you get into evaluating them a little closer, maybe there's a little bit more topography, or there's the hill conditions might make it a little unfeasible. There may be multiple creeks on different properties, which make it infeasible, or multiple floodplains, or wetlands or springs on different parcels. So again, we're trying to avoid those types of properties when possible. Next. And then an example of other sites falling off because they're too far outside of the orange line or blue line corridor. So, you know, looking at sites even east of the airport by a couple miles are not feasible or reasonable to do at this time. So this leaves kind of parcels near the end of the blue line, kind of in the airport proximity, north of Highway 71 are parcels that are currently being evaluated at this time. Next. So key milestones, this is really just a high level preliminary timeline. As we work through different things, we'll be able to confirm some of these dates, but we're hoping to have a site selected this coming summer over the next couple months. A final site will be presented to the community. Late 2022, we're going to continue the environmental NEPA process, and early 2023, preliminary design. The goal is to have that completed with the final design and permitting completed late 2024, with the goal of constructing this project by 2027. And so this has a different timeline than the orange line and blue line, because this is one of the first components of the program that has to be built first. So the facility, the combined maintenance facility, has to be built and ready in order to receive the first trains, in order to test them and test the track work, get the trains ready before a customer can even get on the system. So that's why I wanted to mention the combined maintenance facility is a key component of the entire program. Without the facility being built or ready, we are not able to receive trains, get trains ready, and therefore we can't have anyone actually ride the system until the facility is built like that. So there's it's kind of a domino effect. All right, so I'm going to hand it back over to you, Giannis and Jocelyn.
All right, so now it's the fun part of the show. Even more fun than we've already been having. So we want to hear your thoughts. We want you to tell us what you think. And so for this, we're going to be actually sharing our thoughts via what's called Mentimeter. If you have joined us in different community meetings before, we ask people to go to menti.com. So if you just take your phone and you point the camera to the QR code that's on the screen, it will take you there, or you can go to menti.com and enter the code 72314000. And I can already see on the screen, we have people joining the little blue number that's slowly ticking up. We have we're having participants here. This is great.
It's moving up. We're up at number 11 people participating, and we have about at least 43 on Zoom, and no telling how many are out there on social media watching. If you're on social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, you can participate in this as well. So yeah, once we get a good number, a good representation, we'll get the Menti started, because again, we want to hear from you about the answers to these questions, because we want this to be something that folks are going to be happy with and enjoy.
Yeah.
This can be transformational with wherever this thing is built. This maintenance facility is built, and wanted to be a part of the community, not kind of standing out from it.
We want to build this with the community. Giannis, I'm so glad you brought up the fact that if you're on social media, you can join us too, because for those who are on social media who do not have live Spanish interpretation, I'm just going to go ahead and give quick instructions for anyone watching us on Facebook or YouTube. Entonces, bienvenidos. Esta es la parte de nuestra información, de nuestra presentación esta noche. Si gusta participar en esta encuesta que vamos a tener, vamos a traducir todo al español. Solo hay que usar su teléfono y apuntar la cámara hacia donde ven el código de QR para poder participar en la encuesta que vamos a hacer ahora con la comunidad. También pueden visitar a www.menti.com y acceder a nuestra encuesta por medio del código 7231400. Y ahí es donde vamos a poder participar. Ya cuando tengamos suficiente gente, vamos a poder abrir la encuesta. Once we have, don't be too anxious to start the survey yet. Once we have a representative number in the community that is here participating on menti.com, we'll go ahead and open it to get started.
Yeah, I think we may have a good number. It's kind of slowing down a little bit, so I think we can go ahead and get it going. I do see a hand up. Where'd it go?
Jennifer, did you have a question, or was?
Might have been. And
testing things out, and that's okay too.
Yep. Well, let's see.
Let's get this party started.
Yeah.
All right, so our first question here, go ahead, Giannis, and I'll take the Spanish.
Sure. So who else should we be talking to about this project? Businesses, organizations, school districts, neighborhood associations, etc. We want to go out and reach as many people as possible. I think we have a list of folks we've been reaching out to, but we want to make sure we're not missing anybody in the process of this getting going, and some folks you may know of that may not have that biggest voice as some of the other organizations may.
Yeah, and so that we can have this in Spanish also, la pregunta es, ¿a quién más deberíamos estar consultando acerca de este proyecto? Ya sea los negocios, organizaciones, distritos escolares, asociaciones de vecinos, etcétera. Queremos saber de ustedes, con quién no hemos conectado todavía sobre este proyecto. And I love the variety of answers we're getting here today. Elon, first name basis. Okay.
And then even if you have anyone in particular, you can be as vague or as you want to be, or you can be, as direct and say, talk to this business, talk to this organization, talk to this district, what have you. So you can be as specific as you want to, or as vague. And, some of the people you've listed, we've been working with already. So it's good to see we kind of are lining up with some of the thoughts that y'all are having.
My favorite part is reaching out to the folks who are already riding the buses. I see someone here suggested bus riders. There are boots on the ground experts that we want to hear from, and so are you. Thank you for joining this meeting from all over. You may have moved to Austin from other parts of the country, and we want to rely on your expertise to be sure that we are reaching out to so that no leaf goes unturned as far as our outreach goes.
Definitely. Yeah, I've seen the airport a few times. They want to make sure we reach out to the airport.
The airport has been a tremendous partner throughout this whole, throughout the whole thing, all of Project Connect. And we're super excited to be able to say that we're going to have a line that can go to the airport, even if you use it once a year or to pick up family. It's exciting.
Or if you use it to go to work, because
Daily. Yeah,
it's going to have that purpose as well.
that's right.
All right. Looks like this one is slowing down.
Want to move it along?
Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
All right.
Okay, so what other information should we take into consideration? Just anything that you may be thinking of what we should be looking for.
Entonces la pregunta en español es, ¿qué otra información deberíamos de tomar en consideración acerca de este proyecto? También pueden teclear otra vez sus respuestas a esta pregunta. Anything else we should consider?
Yeah. You know, we recognize the fact that we won't have all the answers or know everything or everyone we should be talking to or everything we should be considering. So, you know, again, we want to be able to use this opportunity to get that information from you of what may we be overlooking or something that just hasn't crossed our radar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really interesting when we talk about, you know, what other information, and here we have, you know, solar farms on the roofs, but then as we're looking at the maps and seeing that we're zoning in closer and closer to the airport, how do we make solar power happen in a flight path? Is that possible? How do we have to get creative in order to make that happen?
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of things we have to look at. Equity is up there. That was one of the first ones. I saw this somebody who wants a public tour access. So it sounds like there's some community interest in what this building could look like or feel like, and would like to see what this new building could be.
Yep.
Field trip possibilities, it sounds like, for schools. Right above it is school principals and teachers. And there's another one for public tours as well. So
yeah. And then of course we do have the Colorado River that someone brought up there too. So how can we ensure that we have a higher quality of water, you know, access to the water out there, that we're planning for, you know, any kind of erosion in the land or anything else. Yeah, field trip possibilities. There's so many. I was so excited. Can you imagine the kids riding in their buses that they have their art on out to a combined maintenance facility to really see mission control?
Or riding the blue line out to the combined maintenance facility to see mission control, or even ride through the bus wash, right? Because
yeah,
everybody loves the train wash, because everybody loves a bus wash, and now we'll have a train wash. So
yeah,
I see parking ride locations.
Let's put student art on the train,
Hey,
Markham.
Why not?
Airline pilots that live in Austin.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's looking like I think we're filling up on these questions, or it's kind of slowing down. So
this is great. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Let's move on to the next question. All right, so now this is going to be a rank one. Rank the opportunities we should explore for the combined maintenance facility, or CMF, that would benefit the community. Number one, we have public art. Number two is community space. Number three is childcare facilities. 4 is green/open space. 5 is restaurants/grocery access. And 6 is small businesses. Again, you're just ranking what you would like to see. That doesn't mean this is what's going to take place, but we want to see what your thoughts and feels are.
Aquí queremos poner en orden de importancia cuáles serían las oportunidades más importantes para ustedes que nosotros deberíamos de explorar para las instalaciones de mantenimiento. Tenemos el arte público, espacios comunitarios, instalaciones para el cuidado de los niños, espacios verdes, restaurantes y accesos a los comestibles, y luego también las pequeñas empresas. Entonces, sé que, espero que la orden siga en donde ustedes están viendo para que puedan poner en la orden de importancia, cuál es lo más importante para ustedes. So first off, we've got, so far in the lead, we have restaurants and grocery access.
Very important. We know there's places around the town that are food deserts, and people need access to healthy food, great foods. But yeah, there's also times you may want to go out and have options of where you can eat and maybe not have to take a long trip to get there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see small businesses, and green open space is kind of close for second and third.
That's right. Yeah.
Folks like to have that greenery, man, that open space
Mhm.
where you can have some fun and enjoy yourself, right? It overtook small businesses.
Yep, here we go. Make every vote count, people.
Yes, there's community spaces right there with them. Child care facilities are very important, and public art. It's still hanging in there.
It's up there.
Mhm.
We know public art is important in Austin,
Yeah, we definitely know that, and
but if you rank that against access to food,
you got to
you
eat to
know,
live,
yeah,
right? You got
that's
to eat
right.
to live. So grocery access or restaurant seems to be what's winning, which again, we understand. We hear you. Looks like it's kind of stopped moving. So do you want to move on to the next?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
Let's see what's next. Okay, what concerns do you have about the proposed combined maintenance facility?
Aquí,
CMF.
aquí queremos saber si tienen alguna preocupación o inquietud sobre la propuesta que tenemos aquí, sobre lo que estamos proponiendo aquí. Cualquier inquietud que tengan sobre este proyecto.
Yeah, we know when you're building new projects, there's always concerns of what could happen. And, we want to hear what your concerns are so we can help address what there may be, and then maybe even help alleviate some of those concerns, or maybe even be some concerns we hadn't thought about. I can tell you, we do sit around and we do talk about, we try to see what the issues can be, but we know, again, we can't get them all. So
That's right. So some things I'm seeing in here are like that it will be noisy, or and air impacts. What we're super excited about is the all electric fleet, the zero emissions for this. So it's not your typical oily, clanky, loud train, greasy train yard. It should be something a lot cleaner, as some of the images that Marcus showed earlier.
there's environmental concerns. It's a top priority for a lot of people when you're talking about sound pollution and other pollution around neighborhoods. And so we want to make sure that this is safe, and you understand how safe it will be. I saw pedestrian concerns as well, or safety for pedestrians. And they want to have a cool looking building, though. They don't want it to be a normal block building. I believe I said like an ugly block building in the middle of some neighborhood. So they want it to be something that's not an eyesore.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've got to look at it no matter where it ends up. And why not showcase it? All right. How are we doing? What do you think, Giannis?
Still like some stuff is coming in. So we'll give them a little bit more. I'm still seeing new things pop up. So
some of these things, feel free to put them in the Q&A, like how will the used batteries be stored? We do still have our experts standing by, as we say in radio speak, right, Giannis?
yes, yes, definitely use that Q&A chat if you have any of those technical questions, or if you have questions that can be answered. We're not able to answer them through the Menti, but they can definitely answer your questions through the Q&A. So, all right. Okay, all right.
There's a concern there about graffiti on the trains. That's, yeah, it's interesting when we think about putting kids' art on their trains and graffiti. But those are definitely things we already have to consider with our buses, and the point of having a secure facility too is it's a place for the trains to go to sleep at night.
Right. There would be, I think those, like our bus yards are pretty much 24 hours where there's always somebody there, whether they're working on the buses or what have you. And so there would be security there, whether it's cameras and other people working. So I think the graffiti on these trains will probably not be an issue, because there always will be moving, and when they're not, they'll be in the yard. We haven't had any graffiti on our commuter rail as of yet, so we don't expect that to be a problem. So, well,
All right,
let's move on to the next question.
let's do it.
What parts of what we presented today are exciting or most promising to you?
Y aquí queremos preguntar, ¿cuáles son las partes de lo que presentamos el día de hoy que les incitan mucha emoción y que es muy prometedor? Entonces queremos saber qué es lo positivo que pueden ver de esto. And here we've designed a word cloud to see. So if you see a word that you like and you would like to type it in again to make that word stand out, go ahead and do that.
Oh, yeah. We want to hear both sides, what's your concerns, but what you like as well. What has you excited about this new facility that's going to be coming to somewhere in town, and what this could look like?
That's right. I mean, change is hard, but every change presents an opportunity. And so we want to be sure we're keeping that as an end goal.
Right. This is a chance for this building to maybe even help out a part of town with having different things there, or even how it's looking with the green roof or what have you. So it's going to be an exciting time getting this built out and just seeing what this building can look like.
So far, I'm seeing equity as being what stands out the most on this word cloud. Sustainability,
Project Connect, as community input, see sustainable and sustainability. There's some public art, there's engage, safety is there, public transit milestones. Yes, folks are excited about quite a few things.
Yeah, that's right.
And, feel free to keep typing them in. I see rail stops in District 2.
That's exciting. That is exciting. Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great for the district. Fairness to residents. Okay. Airport train. Architecture has made a jump.
That's great. Yeah, it seems like more than one person is excited about architecture.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that concern part where they were worried about having a block ugly building in the neighborhood. So I think they want something that's going to complement the neighborhood, and something that folks will be proud of.
That's right.
All right.
Okay, everyone.
Looks like it's slowing down. Any more words? Okay, it looks like we can move on to the next slide.
Please don't ever think that this was the last opportunity for you to present, what your concerns or what you're excited about or how we can partner. We will keep all of this as a record of today's meeting, but please feel free to always reach out to us, and we'll have more information on how you can do that, but specifically at feedback@capmetro.org.
Yeah, so just go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so now we can give people the opportunity to raise their hands and unmute their microphones. And now we'll have a live Q&A with some of the with some of the experts that we have in the background. So if somebody has a question that they're just itching to ask live on the air, feel free to do that. And Joanne, if there's anything that we should look out for that folks are asking in the background that we'd like answered live on the air, we can do that as well. Here I do see how can we share the recording of this meeting. So as we mentioned before, this is also on our social media pages. And so we can, what you can do is as soon as this is over, the recording will be available at the Cap Metro Facebook and YouTube pages, and you can share from there.
Yep, the attendees should be able to raise their hands now. So if you have a question you would like to ask, feel free to raise your hand and we will allow you to be able to ask it out loud if you don't want to type it in the Q&A chat. But yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be an exciting time.
And we do have some questions answered. So if you're in the Zoom webinar, there's a Q&A section that you can go into.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions that we have, Jocelyn and Giannis, and it kind of relates to a couple of the others regarding the trains, is will the CMF be on the blue line, or will there be multiple CMFs to manage both the blue and the orange line, or how do we have an idea of how that would work?
Yeah, and for that, I'd like to invite Marcus Guerrero. Are you still on?
Yes, so the CMF currently is just this project for the initial investment that's currently being developed.
But I think I can add the intention is for it to serve both the orange and the blue line. Wherever it ends up being, it's to serve both light rail lines. We're not anticipating dedicated rail maintenance facilities for each line. That's why it's called the combined rail maintenance facility. I also saw there was another question in the Q&A about why not put it on the red line? Wouldn't that allow it to serve the new light rail lines? So just a reminder that the red line is heavy rail and is a totally different system from the light rail, and has different regulatory framework associated with it. So I think that would not serve, the light rail vehicles will not travel on the red line tracks, for example. So that wouldn't really work to serve the maintenance of the light rail vehicles.
Correct. Yeah, thank you, Peter.
So another question, we would like to know, representing the community, with the photos that were shown, the graphics that were shown, is there an opportunity to create a space around the facility? As one of the keywords that kind of keeps coming up, and most of what we do is sustainable. So when I think mechanics, when I think maintenance, so you think about the oil and things like that are not biodegradable, things that can harm our communities. And knowing the direction that Project Connect is taking, which is to be sustainable, is there an opportunity to also the land that it's on and around it to be just as sustainable as the maintenance yard itself? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for that, I'd like to invite Darren to answer that question. Darren Lozano.
Oh, yes. Let me turn on my screen here. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. My name is Darren Lozano, ATP's Austin Transit Partnership Director of Environmental and Project Development. And I'll start, but then I'll probably turn it over to one of my colleagues, Dave Kubicek or Jade on the line. But, generally speaking, light rail facilities nowadays, they have innovative technology that they're very, very clean and well maintained. There's a lot of, certainly a lot of environmental protections that are incorporated as these are designed and built. Everything is pretty much self-contained within the facility itself. So there aren't, I think it was mentioned, oil leaks. Those are probably back in the days, and maybe some for some of those older legacy systems. But generally speaking, they are relatively clean facilities. Again, Dave or Jay, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that respect.
Hello, Darren. I don't really have anything else to add. On the facility, you're right. It's definitely, we're talking about an all electric, fleet. So we're not using any, engine oil or anything else like that you would typically see like in a locomotive or anything else. And definitely the shops that are built today are very environmentally friendly, very environmentally conscious. On our part to make sure that we have a very sustainable and environmentally friendly application. The other side of it is why we also drive that. We also think about the welfare of not only the customers and stuff out there, but our own employees. We need our employees as healthy as possible to take care of this. So we are also self-motivated in that area to make sure that we provide as good of a working environment as well as a public forward-facing product, to provide services as well. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Very much. Thank you. And another question that came in on YouTube from YouTube, one of our patrons that has been participating in multiple work sessions had asked, will Project Connect be using the abandoned train tracks near I-35 and Highway 71?
I think she's referring to the Bergstrom spur. So,
yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so we are not currently planning on using the tracks of the Bergstrom spur for rail, right? However, I know that the city is actively working on the possibility of converting the Bergstrom spur into a trail that does intersect almost immediately with one of the stations on the Orange Line. So we actually see really terrific multimodal opportunities connecting, users of this new trail facility, which runs east-west, sort of parallel to 290 to 71, with the Orange Line that runs north-south.
Yeah. And then I see a question here. I thought that was a good one. Could we do something smart like a TOD community on top of the facility?
Yeah, I can maybe answer that one. So one of the things we'd like to see is how we can incorporate some of the request of the community with this project development. And we're not sure exactly what that is yet, but that's kind of the purpose of these public meetings, is to get out with the community, kind of go through that Mentimeter kind of exercise you honest did with Jocelyn, to see what are the feedback we're hearing from the community, and is there an option to actually incorporate that into the project development?
And again, if you have questions you want to ask, feel free to raise your hand and we'll allow you to ask it live on the air. So
People aren't used to participating in call-in radio shows anymore.
no, not as much.
I don't want to call out Kale, but Kale is also one of our regular participants. We appreciate Kale's usually been very open to turn on his mic, but probably isn't able to right now, but does have a question. Based on the facility location options, can we anticipate the blue line being potentially constructed and operated ahead of the orange line?
I'll throw that one out to the group. Marcus, did you come on because you want to answer?
Yeah, so that is one thing that's being currently evaluated. So it's a domino effect. So before any passenger can ride the rail system, the CNF has to be built first. So looking at, that's part of what's currently under evaluation, of sites along the blue line.
All right. And now this is from Tony Maldonado. Let's see, do we have somebody that can answer his question? He's on Facebook though. May not have anybody be able to answer his question. unfortunately.
We'll see. We can give it a shot, Giannis.
Sure. So it says with the anticipated population growth of the Austin Central Texas region expected to go from 2 million currently to 4 million by 2039. And since Austin only realistically grow towards the east and southeast of Austin Central Business District, at what point will you begin planning for rail connections on US Highway 290 East towards Maine or Elgin, as well as State Highway 71 East towards Del Valle, Bastrop, and US Highway 183 South towards Creekmore and Lockhart?
He threw us a toughie, but we'll throw that one out to the group.
Yeah.
This is Jackie. Hi, everyone. Jackie Nierenberg, Director of
Jackie.
Community Engagement. Going to pop in here and just mention that in the initial investment program, we did talk about a sequencing of projects and including projects that are coming down the line, further down the line. And one of those is the Green Line, which would be the addition of a brand new commuter service that would serve the Eastern Crescent and beyond in the future. So that gets a little bit close to what his question was asking. So I did want to throw that out there. I don't want us to forget that the Green Line is coming.
All right.
There was an interesting question that Andrew Pyle asked in the Q&A, which was, can we turn the combined maintenance facility into a dual purpose museum of transit that would attract tourism? I just want to mention that because that's the kind of creative thinking that we love to do with community. I mean, this is where great ideas come from. They may not all be doable, but I love the creativity of that. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, and I'd also I see another question in the chat, maybe we can answer. I see a question from Edward Nguyen about, are the Metro Rail and Light Rail trains serviced and maintained differently? Will they have different facilities? So yes, the answer is yes. Our Metro Rail commuter line is currently serviced at our North Operations Yard, which is different than the CMF project that we're presenting today. And the main difference is electric train for light rail versus diesel locomotive for our commuter Metro Rail system. So part of that is the overhead catenary system is much different. The locomotive type engines are different. So they do require different types of maintenance and service.
And then there's this one that came in, and I guess we can go deeper into it, Marcus. You kind of explained it earlier about where we're looking for the facilities. It says, while they may be outside the initial phase, if we know those areas will be serviced, why not consider them and be ahead of the curve for future development?
Yeah, there might be someone else might be able to answer this better than I can. So, because it goes back to, I think, the contract with the voters, part of it is what the voters approved as initial phase, that if there's someone else who can maybe explain that a little bit better than I can, my understanding is we can't actually build into the future phase because it wasn't approved by the voters. But if I'm incorrect on that, maybe someone else on the team here can explain that better.
I see Ann Kitchen has her hand raised, and so let's get the council member and board member Kitchen on. You are allowed to, you can unmute yourself, council member.
The contract with the voters does allow us to, it has a mechanism in it to allow for some of those to proceed with the future investments. But the way it is written, it's we first build the initial investment, and then after that, if there are, after that, we can consider the additional investments. If that answers the question that was being asked.
I think so. And then, and Marcus, you also mentioned during the presentation that the facility needs to be within X amount of miles of the line where it'll be running, correct?
As close as possible, yes. I mean, the further away you get from the rail line, you incur additional property, real estate, right-of-way, utility relocations, construction costs. The further you get away from that, it just involves much more costs and challenges and requirements. And thank you, Councilmember Kitchens, for helping to answer that question. Appreciate that.
Going above and beyond as she does.
Well, are there any more questions we have about the facility? We have 16 more minutes. If not, we will be able to let you go a little early.
We have a couple of slides left, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like we have actually, this is probably a record. We've answered the Q&As, I think, to my knowledge. But yeah, no, this is great. So next steps from today, thank you all for participating in our meeting tonight. So on the 18th, we are going to have, we invite you to come back. We're going to have the upcoming meeting of East Riverside, and Pleasant Valley, that intersection right in front of the HEB plus. So for a lot of people, we were talking about access to food. For a lot of people along the blue line, that is their HEB. So if you know of somebody who needs to be at that meeting on May 18th, be sure you invite them out. And then we have the South Shore Working Group, which is going to meet on May 26th. And then we're going to learn a little bit more about vehicles and systems, which I'm excited about. With our colleague who answered one of the questions, Dave Kubicek. He's going to be talking about vehicles and systems on June 1st. And a week after that, we will follow up with our combined maintenance facility, and that will bring Marcus back up. And then we've got our drag working group on June 14th and subway stations on June 22nd. So all very exciting topics. If you don't have summer plans, you have them now. So you can join us, mark your calendars. If for some reason you don't have a chance to mark your calendar now, just know that all of these dates are posted at projectconnect.com/get involved. And we can always be reached, like I said, at feedback@projectconnect.com.
Yes, is the May 16th meeting on the website. It's looked like Andrew is saying it's not.
Oh, okay. It was earlier today, but I can look into that.
Okay, no problem. And yeah, I think the vehicle and systems one, that's going to be real exciting, where we'll get to see and find out more about what the vehicles could look like and what the systems, of course, will look like. So I expect there will be a lot of people in that meeting as well. All right.
Jocelyn and Jonathan want to say thank you for hosting the meeting. Like I said, we're excited about the project. Between all the potential the project has in terms of high-tech facility, the clean trains, the career development opportunities and partnerships with adjacent school districts, public art opportunities. Somehow there's a way we can incorporate feedback from the community and community needs into the project. We're excited about moving forward with y'all and the community on this. So I want to say thank you again.
And thank you. And thank y'all for taking your time out tonight to participate in this and learn about the CMF. So with that said, I think we can end this.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.